Next order of business is roll call members. Please indicate your presence when the machine is open. If all the members voted, Tyler, roll.
Earl Harris Jr. I haven't seen you in real life in months. It has been months.
You're correct. It has been months.
So now we're still not in real life. We are recording remotely today because it's so impossible to get on each other's calendars. Yeah. So we'll see how this goes. If it just dives, then we know that we got to do something different. But how you been? What's going on?
I'm good. I am in reorganization of my house and life since we're out of session full time. So just trying to catch up on some things, spend some time with family and friends. And then, as you know, even though we are a part-time legislature, we work 12 months out of the year. Doing as a chair of the Black Caucus, we do we do town halls all over the state. So we've completed 3 of them so far of the 7. So those are going on, working on legislation for the upcoming session. And then we also have our interim study committees. And so we know that those will be starting at some point. So session may be over, the legislative work doesn't end. And then also working on some other things with my own business and personal life. So, keep
we'll talk about some of that today. It's interesting. Since we last did an episode, I've had a second kid.
Another human being?
Yeah, we got another one.
I remember us talking about you don't call it a minivan, your sports vehicle, I think you call it.
My multi-purpose vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
So the kid wasn't here yet. I think at the last episode we were
correct.
We were waiting. So this is our first one since we adjourned, which is really, really bad on our part. But it's interesting. So my second kid is now 4 months old tomorrow.
Wow.
And he's already said his first word. Can you believe that?
What was his first word?
It was, can we please move out of Indiana for someplace with higher wages, better health care, and fully funded pre-K? And Natalie and I were just like, whoa, this is incredible and so sad. Yeah.
That's a talented kid that can, even though you said one word, actually complete a sentence.
No, it was a completely cogent thought about public policy in the state of Indiana. So it was really pretty wild. But
did you get one of these from him afterwards?
Yeah, he's just, and I said, we got to stay and fight a little longer, bud. Yeah. We got to stay and fight a little longer. So that's right. Let's talk about some of the laws that were passed and then took effect. As this is going to publish on the last day of July, this was the month it happened. Bills go into effect July 1, at least most of them.
Yep.
Let's talk about the first one, SEA 1, which was property tax restructuring. You're obviously on Ways and Means. You probably spent a little bit of time with this one. I think we all voted against it. What's your take, brother?
As I remember it, the governor campaigned on, Governor Braun campaigned on lowering property taxes. So it was all about that, as in, hey, we're going to make your property taxes lower. They've been increasing over the years. So I guess officially that happened. But what it really also does is it puts more pressure on the locals in terms of funding things. So if I remember the numbers correct, I believe there's a $300 cap of what you can save. But I think most people on average will maybe save $100. So, okay, you're going to save $100 on your property taxes. But while somebody's handing you that $100, somebody is taking out of your pocket, purse, wallet, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
More than that, based on now the locals have to provide funding and they're going to increase the local taxes. So it looks like a win and victory, but it really is not for the public. And that's going to be a problem. And a lot of people are going to get hit with that. And it's going to hurt the locals in terms of trying to figure out, what do we do about police, funding, et cetera, roads, et cetera. So that's a big concern, that, yes, it looks like a shiny new penny, but in actuality, they just took an old penny and sprayed it off and said, here you go.
Yeah, local governments are going to take, I think, a $1.5 billion hit. So you, as an individual, may save a few bucks, but your city, your town, your county are going to get caught holding the bag. So, I mean, your services will deplete. So this is one of those, it's the way politics, at least not the way government always works, but it's the way politics works, which is, hey, look what we did. Meanwhile, all these people will actually be hurt by it. So another bad, and I guess I should have started with the fact that the most consequential bill that passed was the budget. I think you've shared information about the budget. I've done my newsletter on the budget, so you can definitely check those out. They're kind of a deep dive. I think the bottom line is we should probably rename Ways and Means to Ways to Be Mean, because that is where we landed. Just a cruel budget, big cuts, public broadcasting cut, number of people on pre-K cut, Medicaid cuts. If you're a senior, if you're low income or middle income, if you're, trying to make ends meet, this budget's bad for you. It's bad for you.
Yeah, we're going to have people that are going to have to figure out quickly how they're going to deal with a lot of major issues. We know healthcare is a big part of it. I mean, a lot of times, it was always the thought when you take a position, you take a job offer, that salary was the one and only thing people thought about. Well, that's not the case now. It's healthcare, because that's such a big issue. So when we look at cutting healthcare for people, there are people that are going to suffer. And we've heard a lot of talk about what it's going to do for hospitals, but individuals as well. If the funding goes away that provides you healthcare, or healthcare if you're, for a parent or whatever, that's going to be a big hit on people's lives. And that's going to be big adjustments. And people that had funding so that they could have help with their, say, elderly parent or grandparent or sibling or whomever they may be taking care of, what are they going to do when those funds go away, and how are they going to, say, work and do other things in life? So there's a lot going on there that we know is going to hurt a lot of people. As Democrats, we pushed back, we fought for, but the reality is the numbers are what they are, and this is where we're going, and we'll see what happens. Now, I will add in, there's always the hope, and I put a big emphasis on that, is that we, there will be another session, is that we see some of the things that are happening that are going in the wrong direction, and maybe we can make some changes upcoming. We've done that before. We've seen that happen before at the State House. So, the other thing is, I talked about how IBLC is doing the town halls. People are asking, what can we do? We see this as bad. We know this is going in a bad direction. And we've encouraged people, reach out to your reps, senators, reach out to the governor's office and talk about this, because the 2026 session is coming, and there will be an opportunity to possibly make some changes there if enough people express the need for that.
That's right. That's right. Another bill that became law, another bad one, I'd say, SEA 287, which was partisan school boards. We've talked a little bit about this bill on the show. This is the one that says essentially nonpartisan school boards will now be partisan, in the sense that folks can declare a party, Democrat, Republican, Independent, or they can choose to have a blank space next to their name. Obviously, the big risk here is nationalizing otherwise local nonpartisan elections. Right. So now it's not who's best for kids, what are their ideas on improving school districts. It's, are they in any way, have they ever been affiliated with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and or on the opposite side, are they a Trumper, right? Like, that's now the decision point. We both work hard in our local communities. I think this is a loser in all ways.
And I worked in public education for a long time, and I could tell you, I really didn't know and didn't care what the school board members' political affiliation was for the school district where I worked. And this was out, just for full disclosure, it's not a secret, I lived in Indianapolis for a long time. So I worked for the Indianapolis Public Schools, and, worked with board members. I had no idea. Never had that conversation. Didn't care. As long as they were doing good things for students, that's all I cared about. And so, this changes the game. You brought up money. That's always a big issue when you talk about elected positions. And then what kind of national input is going to come in to now mess with what's happening locally, because people want to have influence on the local side. So this is, you're right. This is something that I don't see as a good thing. And I hope it's not as bad as we're afraid that it will be.
Yeah, I think politics is a dividing business at this point, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. I think we should kept school leadership about what's good for kids, but here we are.
Well, and
Number
if I can
three,
add one other thing in
yeah,
there
yeah,
before you jump to the next one is, you kind of alluded to this as well. You have these stereotypes, and it doesn't matter which side, if you're an R or D or whatever. But, that came up and I'm not going to get into details, but that came up in the on-floor discussion, as you may remember, a comment made by a certain representative. Well, I want to know which people running for school board are this. And I'm not even going to get into the details because I'm not going to get into what was said and the person that said it. But that's going to be we saw it there in the debate over getting the bill across the finish line, which tells me it's probably going to come up when it comes to races. And that will be part of the campaigning against people's opponents or for people, however that plays out, which is, again, not going to be what's best for the students of the school district.
Let's talk about a good one for education. SEA 146, the teacher salary floor was raised from 40 to 45,000. Obviously, that's a win, but not nearly enough still. But it is nice. We did have, it's a small victory, I think, that'll help families out.
Yeah, sometimes as much as we would love to see more happen, you take the small victories where you can get them and see where you can go down the line. Teachers good teacher is worth $1 million, if not more, maybe more now with inflation. And so what teachers should be paid and what they are paid is not even close. I mean, I remember, again, talking about how I worked for a school district. There were teachers I saw that went above and beyond and just were incredible. And to think about the fact that they're doing this for the salary they receive, they're not doing it for the money. They're doing it for the love of students, for the love of educating students, for the love of getting the next generation of leaders ready. And I would love to see us continue to work on moving that ladder, that step, going up that ladder in terms of their salary. So hopefully we can do some more down the line.
My first real job was as a middle school teacher, and the amount of money I spent on just supplies for my classroom out of my own pocket, right? I mean, that's not changed. So yeah, we got to do better, and I'm glad we got this part done, but there's more work to follow. SEA 2. Oh, I keep trying to move us. You're good.
Know,
you got what you do.
You brought up something. I'm glad you said that. You brought up something is that teachers, so similar to us, you have people that are like, well, they only work part of the year. Well, it's like us. We get paid for part of the year, but you're working 12 months. So you have that factor. And then you also have the factor, as you said, is it's not as if there's a big budget for school supplies. So I've seen this from, having personal friends and relationships with people that are teachers and see what they spend in terms of their own money going out and buying supplies, going out and buying things that will be used in the classroom. So yeah, you get a little bit of a raise, but all that does is just soften the blow of the money that they're spending out. So thank you, teachers, for all you do. We all owe you so much.
Yeah, we don't deserve you. We don't deserve you. SEA 2, Medicaid work requirements. Medicaid recipients must now work or volunteer 20 plus hours a week to stay covered unless exempted. Take it away, Earl.
Well, this has been tested and has been proven not to be a good thing. And I'm forgetting the stats off the top of my head, but most of the people, it's 80 something. You may have the stats in front of you. I'm sorry, I didn't.
I don't. Number. If you could guess, I'll believe you.
87%. It really is something in that realm of people are already, I believe, meeting this. And I may have that number wrong, so I apologize if I do. But this is already something that's in place. What it's really going to do is it adds in this process of you now having to prove that. So now you have to, I believe, get online. Well, what if your technology is an issue? What if something doesn't get uploaded correctly? And then we also now live in a world where you have like gig economy and people that do different things or work in different positions, that it's not as easy to show that you're actually working those hours. So it feels like this is a way, because we've had a lot of talk about how there's a want. I'm not going to say need. There's a want to reduce the cost of this. So what does this do in terms of making it harder for people that qualify to qualify? And does it slow them down? And are we in a position where people are going to miss out because of something that's not their fault, but they now have to jump through these hoops that are moving targets and sometimes don't get completed the way they need them to be completed on time?
You add to it, right, changes to income level restrictions and whatnot, and all of a sudden, I mean, this is really just an attack on poor people. I mean, is what it becomes. And I also, quite a bit of data suggests that it'll actually cost more to implement than it will save in money, right? So because of all the requirements and the tracking, all that stuff, it's actually probably going to be more expensive than it is to save money. So, again, like I said, ways to be mean is the way the committee should be restructured, because that's kind of what we're looking at. All right, last one we'll talk about for the show. Let's talk about one that you and I disagreed on, which I think will be interesting for listeners. That this happens from time to time. You think that Earl and I just run around holding hands with rainbows behind us. But we do disagree from time to time.
Don't forget about the butterflies. Come on.
That's right. It's just joyful noise all around us all the time. SEA 1461 was a road funding bill, some other things in there. I'll listen. Why don't you go first with your incorrect opinion, and I'll share mine.
So, we Jim Pressel, who is the chair of Roads and Transportation, I serve as the ranking minority member of that wonderful committee.
Thank you for your leadership.
Yeah, thanks. This is in reality. And Representative Pressel and I had a conversation, at least one before session started, and knew that this was going to be contentious. We actually, back my first year in office, did a bill that had to do with road funding. And I'm so sorry. I apologize for that.
You're good.
Because we learned, or we had validated, that we had a lot of issues with roads and bridges. For those of us that live up here in Northwest Indiana, we had the joy, he says sarcastically, of dealing with having to drive on 65, get off on 65, go through cornfields and small towns to get back on because a bridge dropped. And what it did back then was shine light on the fact that we need to put some serious money into our roads and bridges. And so we passed a bill then that had to do with the gas tax. It had to do with adding fees if you have a electric, an EV, or a hybrid. There was actually additional fees onto your plate cost. So it really did not take care of the need financially. So last summer, there was a task force I was part of, and there's study committee, et cetera, that we really are in the hole. And so we looked at some different options that other states had done. One of them, which I don't think anyone was really enthusiastic, and it may have been the state of Virginia, but don't lock me in on the state, where it would have put a tracker on your car to track the amount of miles you drove, and you would be charged based on that. Well, two problems with that. Number one, if you live in a corner of the state like I do, all your miles are not in Indiana. Michigan is close, Illinois is close, so am I going to get charged for that?
That's a good point.
Yeah, but the bigger issue for people, which I agree with, is I don't really want anybody tracking where I'm driving. That's a little Big Brother-like. So we didn't go down that path. We went down the path we did go, which is going to do some increasing. I just mentioned the fees for EVs and hybrids. And then it also, which has been a stressful point, which is why you and I have disagreed on this bill, for us here in Northwest Indiana, is giving the governor increase in the ability to put tolls. So, tolling in Northwest Indiana is already something we don't love. And so now adding the ability for that to happen easier is something that has caused a lot of people stress here.
Consternation.
Yes, consternation. You can look at those big words. Consternation, like 3-4 syllables. So, when you look at conversation about the potential of putting a toll on 8094, we do have a toll road 90, which runs parallel to 8094. But adding in a potential toll to 65, which of course, having to drive to Indianapolis, as I do, and other reps and senators up here, so we do. So those are some potentials that are discussed. It really is a tough situation, and Representative Pressel was in a tough situation because people don't love tolling here. And so we're not enthusiastic about that. Just to add some other information in, and we had to do something. Indiana is about 161 miles across. when you look at 8094 here and 70 in Indianapolis, you get a lot of cutting across the country, cutting across the state traffic. So people can drive across, spend those, say, 2 hours driving across Indiana and never stop to get gas, food, drink. So they're wear and tear on the roads, but not actually contributing to the finances of the state. So not a solution all of us loved. But again, the tolling part was not loved here. I will tell you, there was a gentleman, it was either 6 or 8 billboards that I think he purchased this on his own. He's a gentleman out of Porter County that were against tolling. So it was kind of interesting to see those billboards pop up in the area. That's why we in Northwest Indiana did not love this bill. And if you want to tell us why people in Indianapolis think we're all wrong and that you love this bill,
here's the thing. If I'm being fair, the tolling stuff's not great. It's just not great, right? And it takes away a step. It does make it easier. Essentially the governor's office can go and seek a waiver from the federal government to make it happen. That's not good. And if that were a bill on its own, you vote no, right? Like I would have voted no. But the other pieces of it outweighed that for me. And that includes changes to the way we do the road formula. We've long been upset about the fact that road miles were determined by center lane rather than how many lanes, right? So in a place like Indianapolis, where you have an 8-lane road cutting through the center of the city, that road was getting as much funding from the state perspective as a 1-lane road out in a rural county.
Right.
And so that just doesn't make any sense. So it corrected that to an extent. And there was a pot of money to help address what are pretty significant road funding issues here in Marion County in particular, and a little bit of carrot and a stick to push us to max out wheel tax and some other things that we're a little behind on. So at the end of the day, it could mean, over the course of the next decade, $1 billion more in road funding for Marion County if we leverage every tool that's been handed to us. And in a time when our roads are in pretty bad shape because of kind of years of not a fair formula, that seemed necessary to vote for. And so I was on, the baby was days old, I think, and I came in to vote for that bill. I wanted to vote in opposition to your vote. And so I was there. I wasn't going to miss it. But no, this is a win for Indianapolis. Is there some potential downside? Absolutely. And this is what happens with public policy sometimes, is a bill comes forward that you've got to determine, does the good outweigh the bad? And for me, it did. Obviously, Marion County, for Northwest Indiana, totally makes sense. Maybe that it didn't work for you, but there it is, folks. You can disagree respectfully on major public policy issues, even amongst friends, which is where we landed.
So when the tolls, when the tolls start, those of us in Indianapolis would appreciate a thank you letter for our tolling funds from all of you people that live in Indianapolis. No, I'm joking. No, you brought up something that is reality. Is sometimes you have to vote yes or no on a bill, depending on certain factors. You may not love the entire bill, but as you said, one side outweighs the other side, and that's what you have to go with. So it was a good bill for Indianapolis. I don't argue that. As someone who, obviously being a representative, has to spend time in Indianapolis, the roads need some work. I actually lost which cost me money personally. I actually hit a pothole one night leaving the State House and lost the center hub on a tire. So that cost me a little bit of money.
You have those spinner hubcaps.
No, I've never
car.
Spinners, but thank you for that funny joke there. So I had to buy it and then get it painted.
Did he stop? I can't tell. Still spinning.
They spinning. Was that Chris Rock who said? I think that was Chris Rock. They spinning. So it will, to some degree, I will be appreciative of hopefully not having to. And that's not the first time that's happened. That's about the third time I've lost the center hub on a tire while hitting a pothole.
Yeah. Well, you need a multi-purpose vehicle. They hold up pretty well in these situations. All right.
I do not have children. I do not need a minivan, sir.
Yeah. Camera gear, it's great. It's great for the profession.
Cameras have gotten smaller. We don't need as much gear now.
The tripods are still huge. Okay,
Yeah.
here we got a few minutes left.
All right.
Let's talk really quickly about the interim. Obviously, as you mentioned, we don't disappear for 9 months. We don't stop working. Study committees have been announced, and they meet from July to October to research issues that might have come up throughout the year that we couldn't get to legislatively. Maybe they're too controversial. Maybe they're too complex and need really kind of in-depth study. These topics are assigned by the Legislative Council, so you're focused. You have to the resolution very clearly states what you can cover, and you can't go off script. And these reports will shape what bills likely get filed in January. Tell us about your interim assignments. Anything else folks should know about this time in the calendar.
So I'm going to talk about one because you just brought up something that I learned this lesson early on in my legislative career. So I'm on PMOC. That's one of them. And I've been on PMOC, I believe, every year I've been in the State House. That's pension management. So it has a lot to do with pension management for police and fire. And I had a bill that I authored. This is kind of like teachers where there's some things we really need to do for people that put their lives on the line for us every day. As I've said this for years, when all of us are running this way, police and fire, first responders are running that way towards whatever it is we're running from. And so I authored a bill that had to do with connected to, the payout if you die in service, or, there's just different pension things like that. And the chairman at the time that it went through had a conversation with me and said, and it was multiple things the bill did, as I was saying, that has to do with supporting our police and fire. And he said, hey, I want to hear your bill, but I've already been told by the head of, I believe, Ways and Means that it'll go from that
Ways to be Mean. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
we changed the name.
Go to Ways and Means, and that the bill will die there because it didn't go through PMOC. And I was like, huh? Because I didn't know this. And so what I learned was pretty much anything that has to do with police and fire pension. In fact, Tony Murray and I with the firemen's group actually just had this conversation. Is that if something that's going to benefit the pension of fire and police, it has to go through PMOC or it won't go through the State House. That's one of those, I guess, kind of unwritten laws. So it was a good learning lesson for me. So the chairman did let me present in, because this sometimes happens, is the chairman may let you present your bill, but there's not going to be a vote taken on it. But he was like, hey, I want you
to do that a couple times.
Yeah. At least you get the information out, and you kind of, that kind of helps the process and just kind of feeds the pump for next time. So looking forward to PMOC and what we end up doing there. But that was a good lesson learned that I did not know. So, that's not really in the handbook, but it's part of the
institutional knowledge matters, right? Some of that stuff really matters. I'm serving on, here's what also happens. You may get assigned to committees that have already been told they're not meeting, right?
Yeah.
So which is like going on a date and no one else shows up. I'm on 2 of those.
Did that happen to you before you were married a lot? Oh, sorry.
All the time. I'm glad that I wasn't around during the app dating era.
Aren't we all?
I probably would have got stood up all the time. And the swiping, people wouldn't have swiped. They wouldn't have swiped to the correct direction. I don't even know which direction it is, but they would not have swiped the good one for me.
Yeah, but you know what? So you have your wonderful wife and you have 2 little people, so it's worked out well for you, even without the help of apps.
I have been assigned without any apps to commerce, government, and public policy. Government, public policy, neither will meet. But commerce will focus on the barriers to licensed professionals, how credentialing may be shutting people out of work, and looking at the ways we can kind of improve that process, maybe reduce some red tape. So that'll be interesting for me. This time's also just about what do you want to do in the next session, right? So we're spending time thinking about our own bills, paying attention to the issues that are popping up. I mean, we didn't talk about it today, but the one big beautiful bill from the federal government, huge impacts on the state of Indiana, really negative impacts. So we're going to be watching that to see what we can do to try to address those as well. Earl, I don't know where that one came from.
I don't know either.
I think it's because Phil assigns us to those things, really.
Yeah.
What can people do to get involved during this period of time in the calendar year?
I'm going to steal something that Representative Robin Shackelford has said for years, which is advocacy. We've talked about that at the town halls because people are asking that question. What can we do? What can we do? And I said this earlier, reach out to your reps, your senators, reach out to the governor's office. As this interim study committees it's way smaller time frame and way less meetings, but is similar to what happens in session. So you have an opportunity as constituents, as citizens of the state of Indiana, to get engaged in that, look at the topics. It's all, again, everything is public knowledge that we do. Look at the topics, look at how you can have some influence or impact on them in terms of we should do this, we should not do this, or have you thought about this, and get engaged in that process. Because as we've talked about and alluded to, things we work on during the interim study committee, usually, if they go through and are successful and pass through, etc., usually end up in some form of legislation the next session. So engagement is always something I like to encourage people to do, because as I like to remind people, you put us in office, we represent you. It also means you can take us out of office. So we need to listen to what our constituents want and need and information that they provide us with.
Brilliant advice from my co-host, Phil. Now I want to say another thing you can do in the meantime is subscribe, share, stay informed here with Sessions. We're going to try to get back into a regular cadence of releasing as things are sort of happening around the state. If nothing's going on, maybe we'll take a week off, but you could have your notifications on, and we'll be back with you here leading up to the new session. Earl, listen, it's been really good to see you. And
even if not in a 3-dimensional world.
Yeah, this is fine. This works. Yeah. I mean, the ability to just click out and exit is nice. So it's been good to see you. Thanks to all of you for continuing to stay with us and downloading the episodes and listening to us. We only do this because we want to keep you informed and show you what it's like behind the scenes. So we hope you have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful rest of your summer, and we'll be back with you very, very soon. Earl, anything you want to say to the fine folks that tune in?
No, I echo what you just said, and thanks for your viewership and for subscribing and following us. And again, as mentioned, it's our goal is to keep you informed and show you a little bit behind the curtain of what happens at the State House. And also remember, Representative Blake Johnson and I have different social media outlets, so you can find out more about what's going on in our districts and with us through those avenues as well.
But not on Tinder. We're not on Tinder. All right. Have a wonderful day. We'll see y'all soon.
All right. See ya.